Recreational swimming is an exuberant sport relished by adolescents who use their muscular strength and endurance to propel themselves through a body of water. Unfortunately, children diagnosed with atopic asthma may possess a faltered cardiorespiratory system that impedes their ability to swim efficiently through a body of water. Even children without asthma may also experience such worsened conditions, likewise. In a short story, Through the Tunnel, a college boy stimulus, author Doris Lessing describes the pain that a boy experiences after undertaking a voyage through a tunnel in the ocean in which his chest was hurting. However, through proper practice and routine, these setbacks can be rendered rather innocuous by the benefits offered by recreational swimming on the health of these children diagnosed with asthma. Good morning, my name is Rupen Iyer, and I will be talking with the impact of recreational swimming on the cardiorespiratory health of Western children diagnosed with atopic asthma. My research answers the question, to what extent has recreational swimming impacted the cardiorespiratory health of Western children diagnosed with atopic asthma in the 21st century? I argue that recreational swimming has had an overall positive impact on the cardiorespiratory health of Western asthmatic children diagnosed with the disease in the 21st century. The perspectives that I will be taking a look today as I discuss this issue include spirometry, bronchial inflammation, and immunology. To begin with, Western children with atopic asthma who pursued recreational swimming, whether deliberately or not, have seen an elevation in several spirometric recordings and parameters. A spirometer is a device, as shown by this image, that can record the circulation, ventilation, and intensity of air flowing through one's respiratory system, in which some of the frequently recorded spirometric values include FEV1, or forced expiratory volume 1, FVC, or forced vital capacity, and PEF, or peak expiratory flow. A study conducted by the University of Niš in Serbia attempted to analyze the correlation between asthmatic children practicing swimming for a set amount of time per week, which was 2 hours per week for a total of 6 months, versus the fluctuations in several spirometric parameters and recordings. This group was designated as Group A. On the other hand, Group B was comprised of children who were also diagnosed with atopic asthma, but weren't subjected to the same swimming treatment and routines that children in Group A had been subjected to, and hence acted as a control group. According to Mirana Arandelovic, a researcher at the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Niš in Serbia, in Group A, statistically significant increase was found in the lung function parameter forced expiratory volume 1 as compared to Group B, where we can see here in this highlighted data column, initially it was 3.55 liters per second for Group A, but at the end of the study it was 3.65 liters per second, an increase by 0.1 liters per second. On the other hand, Group B initially was 3.29 liters per second, but at the end of the study it was 3.33 liters per second, an increase by only 0.04 liters per second. The results of the study clearly elucidate the respiratory value that swimming implicates on the health of these children, and hence provides a potential non-steroidal solution to enhancing the functioning of their lungs. In another study conducted at Our Lady's Children's Hospital located in Dublin, Ireland, another spirometric parameter that was measured was peak expiratory flow, or PEF, in which the study was comprised of four separate groups, including a control group, a basketball group, a swimming group, and a football group, in which all four groups comprised of children diagnosed with asthma and between ages 9 and 14. According to Chris Carew and Desmond W. Cox in an article titled Laps or Lengths, the effects of different exercise programs on asthma control in children, and the swimming group, a statistically significant increase was found in the lung function parameter peak expiratory flow, where in this highlighted data column we can see initially it was 78.3%, but at the end of the experiment it was 89.0%, an increase by almost 11% that is illustrated by this dark gray bar shown in the bar chart here, where in comparison we can see for basketball and football it was an increase by 8.1% and an increase by only 5.7% respectively. The results of the study clearly highlight the value that recreational swimming has on the health of these children, in terms of the fact that it can facilitate the flow of carbon dioxide gas within their cardiopulmonary system, regardless of these prevalent asthmatic conditions. Secondly, Western children with atopic asthma who pursue recreational swimming, deliberately or not, have seen an amelioration of signs of bronchial inflammation that are typically characteristic of asthma. The diagram shown here on the left represents the network of granular leukocytes that are involved in combating an infection during the inflammatory process, in which cells such as goblet cells that release that secrete mucus, eosinophils, basophils, and neutrophils, as well as chemicals created by these cells, including histamines, prostaglandins, and pyrogens, are proliferated and produced when fighting off an infection. However, the proliferation and production of these immune cells and the chemicals that are produced by them, and their proliferation, can result in the irritation effects that these children experience, especially during asthma attacks, such as sneezing, wheezing, coughing, bronchoconstriction of the lungs, and other factors. A study conducted by Wesley Alberta, a researcher at at the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil. At the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil with a degree in immunology with a degree in immunology, conducted an experiment in which his team at the Nova de Hulu University attempted to analyze the effect that aerobic exercise has on the modulation of the leukotriene pathway that normally impacts asthmatic phenotypic expression, in which the study comprised of 4 separate groups, including a control group, an exercise group, an OVA group, and an OVA plus exercise group. The 2 groups that were injected with OVA or ovalbumin were groups that were injected with a variation of the albumin protein that is responsible for blood flow and osmotic control. After the experiment was conducted, we can see that the OVA group of mice that were treated with ovalbumin showed a significantly smaller concentration of immune cells in the blood and lymphatic fluid as compared to the group in the OVA group that weren't subjected to exercise. Clearly, this shows that the decrease in the concentration of these immune cells could result in a decreased occurrence of bronchoconstriction and mucus hypersecretion, 2 features known to be associated with the proliferation of immune cells when combating an infection that causes irritation in these children. In another study, actually, to begin with, this diagram shown here illustrates the functioning of T regulatory cells, or Tregs, that are responsible for suppressing or inhibiting the functioning of immune cells that are used to combat an infection during the inflammatory process, in which these cells may reduce the chances of irritation that such children face during asthmatic attacks. For example, T regulatory cells can release protein molecules such as perforins and granzymes that can limit the extent to which a child experiences irritation during an asthma attack. According to Lori D. Wilson, a researcher at the University of Irvine with a PhD in epidemiology, along with her team, conducted a study in which 35 adolescent swimmers diagnosed with asthma who were high schoolers from Southern California were tested to determine the changes in concentrations of T regulatory cells found in their blood plasma after they were subjected to vigorous swimming for 3 hours per day for 6 days of the week. In which, after the study was conducted, the concentration of T regulatory cells found in the blood fluid, including CD4 plus and CD25 plus, increased significantly following the exercise, where initially it was 133 cells per microliter, and at the end of the study it was 196 cells per microliter. In which the results of the study clearly highlight that an increase in the concentration of T regulatory cells could potentially pave the way for a decrease in the concentration of immune cells that normally cause irritation that these children experience during asthma attacks, such as sneezing, coughing, bronchoconstriction, etc., such as I referenced beforehand. The resolution I propose is that recreational swimming is a viable option to mitigate the effects of asthma in children inflicted with the disease, given the potential advantages it offers. However, monitoring of the water bodies that such children engage recreational swimming in is imperative due to the presence of certain chlorine-based chemicals and compounds that are found in the water that could hamper their cardiorespiratory health. However, through a process known as superchlorination, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in an article titled Chloramines and Pool Operation, the concentrations of these chlorine-based compounds, such as trichloramines and hypochlorous acid, can be limited, in which these chlorine-based compounds are gassed off in a way that yields nitrogen gas and produces a pool environment that is conducive to the health of these children, regardless of their conditions. And taking into account this limitation, the impact is that Western children diagnosed with this disease are likely to see an improvement in their cardiopulmonary health and due to the implications imposed by the immune system in terms of its receptiveness and increases in the margins of respiratory health parameters. This is my work cited. Thank you.
All right, 2 questions for you. First up, what information did you need that you weren't able to find, and then how did that steer your project?
So some information that I needed beforehand was actually the functioning of, like, for example, T regulatory cells, because I didn't really know too much about T regulatory cells when I first started researching this. Like, the anatomy of this whole entire presentation I was discussing was not too familiar to me. So I had to, like, as I was researching through and I was looking at, like, the keywords that were mentioned in these sources, I would go onto like reliable search engines and look up the definitions of these and understand, like, their functioning and how they contribute to the functioning of the lungs and their relationship to asthma in general.
Okay. And then, what advice would you have for people that want to look at this or asthma in general?
So, some advice I would have for others who consider this field is to actually take into account the perspectives of the actual children who are being tested for these experiments, because all these experiments utilize empirical evidence and data, qualitative and quantitative data that was collected However, we need to consider the perspectives of children who are tested, as we can learn from them their experience of like afterwards, after the experiment was conducted, how they feel after the experiment was conducted. For example, if they continue swimming for like, let's say like 8 months, afterwards they can report how they feel like in terms of like coughing wise, in terms of sneezing, all their conditions that they normally would have experienced beforehand, how it changes in frequency afterwards, after this experiment was conducted.
You're done.